Testing. Welcome to this evening's Agenda Briefing Forum. This evening is not a decision-making forum, it is the briefing on the agenda for the Ordinary Council meeting, which will be held next Tuesday, the 22nd of August 2023. I'd like to remind everyone in the chambers to ensure that comments are respectful to the Council and all meeting attendees, including city officers and those in our public gallery. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed, and I'd like to remind people to please turn their mobile phones onto silent. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which we are meeting, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. There are no announcements tonight. Attendance, Councillor Clark is on leave of absence and the Mayor has provided an apology. All other councillors are present in the chamber. Are there any councillors who have an interest to disclose? Councillor Ostrowski.
Thank you. My interest is for item 10.3.1. There are some diagrams of roads in that item, and my street that I live on is shown throughout many of those diagrams. It's an impartial interest and I'll be staying in the room. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other councillors with an interest to disclose? Councillor Peterson-Pick.
Yes, in relation to item 11.2, my motion proposed alternative use of Gibney Reserve Pavilion for out-of-school hours care. It's an impartial interest. My kids attend the Maylands Peninsula Primary School and I'm a member of the board of the school. I will stay in the room. Thank you.
Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. 11.2, the proposed alternative use of Gibney Reserve Pavilion for an out-of-school hours care. Just to say that I'm the unpaid chair of the Bayswater Childcare Centres and it's an impartial interest.
Thank you. Any other councillors have anything to declare? No, in which case we shall move on to deputations. This evening we have 16 in-person deputations. As this is a large number of deputations to get through, could we please ask to all deputies to please keep your deputations as brief as possible. I'll explain how the deputation process works. Each person who is presenting a deputation will be invited to come forward and speak at the microphone for up to 5 minutes. As we get close to 5 minutes, I'll let you know so that you can conclude your deputation. Once you've finished, the councillors may have some questions for you. As we have a number of deputations to hear tonight that are about the same items, please ensure that you only provide new information in your deputation. So with that, we will start with item 10.1.1, Keeping and Control of Cats Amendment Local Law 2023, Mr. Robert Madden. Thank you. So could staff assist with the microphone?
Is that on?
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, councillors. My name is Dr. Robert Madden, and on behalf of the group responsible Cat Ownership Stirling, the City of Stirling's residents and indeed wider Western Australia, I would like to extend my thanks to the City of Bayswater for receiving me this evening. Many others will speak today on the negative impacts of roaming domestic cats on wildlife and their social outcomes, so I won't press into those now. Instead, I would like to share insight into our experience tackling the issues at hand. The Responsible Cat Ownership Stirling Group are a movement in the City of Stirling that over the course of what is now approaching a year have been actively trying to achieve effective cat control to improve native and domestic animal welfare and social outcomes. We were initially successful in putting forward motions that were working towards responsible cat ownership in the City of Stirling. In advance of a May meeting at the City of Stirling, our COS put forward 3 submission packets. I'm aware they have been forwarded to councillors today, outlining wide support from esteemed professors, leading authorities on cat and urban ecology, local City of Stirling vets, the Australian Veterinary Association, City of Stirling Friends of groups, community groups such as the Carrying Up Men's Shed and the City of Stirling Ratepayers Association. Additionally, support was shown from the Urban Bushland Council, the Frog Doctor, the Invasive Species Council, the WA Feral Cat Working Group, Kanyana Wildlife Rehabilitation Centre and WA Wildlife. Some of those people are here with us tonight. Support for strengthening cat local laws in the City of Stirling and indeed the state is strong and further supported by Responsible Cat Ownership Stirling, who amassed close to 300 followers on Facebook in the month leading up to the City of Stirling voting on our motions. Ultimately, what we sought was the simple, effective local laws that have already been introduced and implemented in Northam and Narrogin, just as City of Bayswater are attempting to do now. Perhaps most importantly for you to know tonight, Responsible Cat Ownership Stirling received acknowledgements of support from councillors across 22 Western Australian local government areas, including 2 from the City of Bayswater's own council. It is with great disappointment, then, that the City of Stirling have directly rejected anything that seems like cat containment. In the City of Stirling, many councillors and the administration have adopted a weak wait-and-see stance in the lead-up to the 2024 review of the Cat Act that under the new minister may indeed never come. We expected better of the state's largest local government authority. Whilst I and the RCOS members do not live in the City of Bayswater, I have come to you this evening desperately seeking your help. We are seeking real, progressive and forward-thinking leadership at a time when it is so clearly absent across much of our state. The City of Bayswater holds the very real power to instigate high-profile positive change. To date, the meetings that we have attended here have shown us that you, the elected councillors, are led by facts, science, and do genuinely appear to represent the best interests of your electorate. Indeed, you do the job that you were elected to do. It is further apparent to us that you want to enact meaningful change with regards to the environmental and social toll of free-roaming domestic cats, or else you wouldn't have requested an extension on your decision over Clause 2.2. The legal advice that your own residents have sought and provided is sound and makes it clear that Clause 2.2 is not in contravention of the WA Cat Act 2011. The City of Bayswater's elected councillors are threatened with admonishment by the Joint Standing Committee for Designated Legislation if they do not comply with the undertaking to remove Clause 2.2 from the local law amendment. This admonishment appears to be supported by the City of Bayswater administration that are seemingly advising councillors to adhere to the undertaking. It is truly breathtaking that the committee that approved the very same local laws in Northam and Narrogin has issued this threat. The Minister for Local Government has been made aware of the legal inconsistencies between the Narrogin and Northam local cat laws that allow, as per the provisions of the Act, for the effective control of cats, and recent decisions by the JSCDL where the committee appears to have disagreed with precedent. It would be devastating if the City of Bayswater shut down an important move towards ecological safeguarding at fear of reputational damage when the loss of reputation is so clearly the JSCDL's for their own contradiction. You do not stare down reputational damage this evening or next week when you vote on this matter. No. You are supported by the reputational prestige you stand to gain. All over the state, concerned groups of residents with limited resources have been able to show scientific, animal welfare and community-based support for keeping cats safely at home unless under effective control.
Sorry, Dr. Madden, you're just coming up to 5 minutes.
Just wrapping up. Eyes were previously on the City of Stirling as the largest city in the state to do not only what was demonstrably right, but also to set a clear precedent for their peers and signal to the state government that the time for deliberation is long past due. We urge you to be progressive and to demonstrate what leadership action looks like. Stand up to the JSCDL. You're supported by your residents across the metropolitan area, legal advice, scientific advice, wildlife experts, and importantly, what is so plainly the right thing to do.
Thank you. Councillors, do any of you have any questions for Dr. Madden? No, thank you.
Thank you.
Next deputation is Mr. Aidan Lang. Thank you.
Good evening, councillors and officers. Tonight I'm presenting, acknowledging I'm a councillor actually at the City of Fremantle. I should declare that if you didn't know. And I'm here to discuss this potential local law from the perspective of a local councillor like yourselves. I'm coming here as a comrade and in support of the decision that is in front of you this evening or later this week, because this is a team effort that we are fighting and many other local governments in the state are fighting. And now the ball is in your court here at the City of Bayswater. I'm hoping as a councillor at the City of Fremantle, the vote that you put forward can make the right change to allow us to follow Bayswater and allow every other local government to follow the change you've made here in Bayswater. There's two main points I want to discuss this evening, and the first one is debunking the 2024 review message that is coming out of the state government at the moment. And the second piece I wanted to discuss is the importance of your vote. Most recently, a lot of news articles has covered off the message from the state government saying, we will review the CAT Act in 2024. And this message seems to be quite effective at the moment. A lot of news outlets, a lot of other local governments are saying, we won't act, we won't try and change our CAT law until the review is completed in 2024. And I just want to break that down and analyse what review in 2024 actually means from a timeline perspective. In 2019, there was a review of the CAT Act. It took around 12 months, and the findings came out about 6 months later, and they handed down their findings. 76% of respondents supported CAT containment and wanted to see CAT containment introduced. It took 18 months to figure that out, and nothing has happened since then. It's now 2023. If a review is to occur in 2024, you've got 18 months of the review process. Then you've got to take your review findings through Parliament if they decide to. They've got to get a new CAT Act through Parliament and approved. That could be another 1 or 2 years in itself. If we get to 2027, 2028, and we have got a new CAT Act, it then comes to the council chamber, and you guys have been on this journey yourself. When you start considering a new item, reviewing and considering the new CAT Act in 27, 28, it might not be until 2029 or 2030 until you've actually got effective CAT control in Bayswater. So that's another 7 years from now. And I know everyone in this room understands that timeline. My colleagues behind me and the scientific experts will break down the numbers for what 7 years actually means in the amount of wildlife that could be killed in that period. The second piece I want to talk about tonight is your vote. Your vote is actually a very popular vote in your electorate and in your community. A few years ago, I started this journey in the city of Fremantle. I, by the water cooler, spoke to my colleagues and said, I'm considering introducing CAT prohibited areas. Many of them looked at me and said, you're crazy, you're on your own, I want nothing to do with this. You never mess with people's cats and dogs, it's a vote killer. So I thought about this and I thought, no, I'm here to make a change and do the right thing. I've been elected for a reason, and I pressed ahead and managed to get our first iteration of prohibited areas through the city of Fremantle. During that process, the colleagues that said they wanted nothing to do with it ended up voting in support, and we had a unanimous vote from my colleagues. As you've known over the last few years, it's been in the media quite a lot, this topic. If you read the comments online, on Twitter, on Facebook comments, you can see there's an overwhelming support from the community saying, we support this, about time, let's get on with it. So in terms of your vote, voting in favour of something like this, I want to assure you that it is a popular vote within our community. And when the review was done of the CAT Act in 2019, 76% of respondents then supported CAT containment. So where are we now? We're at a dead end. As we know, we're in this kind of policy, bureaucratic dead end where we don't know which way to turn at the moment. Unfortunately, we're not getting much guidance. But we do know that Northam have got effective control in their local CAT law, and that's what we're discussing this evening.
Sorry, Mr. Lang, you're just coming up to 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. So I'm hoping that your vote, like myself, you're elected to make a difference, and Bayswater can make a difference. The decision that you make on this item could have an enormous ripple effect in Western Australia and across the entire country. I'm asking you to consider the gravity of your vote in the context of the overwhelming evidence you'll hear later this evening. This is a vote for cat health, a vote for wildlife, and a vote for change. You can make a difference across the entire state. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Councillors, do any of you have a question for Mr. Lang? No?
Sorry,
Yes, Councillor Ostaszewski.
thank you. Thank you for your presentation this evening. You were referring to 2019 when the CAT Act was reviewed, and feedback showed that people were in favour of changes, 76%. Are you able to point me in the direction of that review so I can read that feedback?
Sure, I will email it to you in a moment.
Right, thank you.
Thanks.
And that was all? Okay. Next deputy this evening is Mr David Dyke. Thank you.
David Dyke, View Street in Maylands. I have reached a significant milestone in recording in excess of 15,000 recordings for the Frog ID program and research arm of the Australian Museum. And there's some screen dumps there if you want to view them. Thank you to Council in achieving registration of 43 cat prohibited sites, which has alerted many in the community of roaming cats. However, from my observations, there are just as many cats out hunting and slaughtering animals in all of our parks, wetlands and natural areas. So we really need cats enclosed on their owner's property or under control by their owner in public places, similar to dogs under the Dog Act. Over the past month, I have seen a cat tugging at a treasured rakali, what you might say is Australian's otter, a 28 parrot being eaten by a cat, and many small birds and skinks being killed. Some of these I have managed to photo, and you would have seen these on Facebook. Over the last 3 nights, I have attended many parks, river wetlands and natural areas from Lightning Swamp to Banks Reserve, counting 21 cats out roaming and hunting. This is crazy and ridiculous. A government committee, namely the JSCDL, treating the West Australian community as if we were in the Supreme Court, arguing points of law, and at the time with complete disregard the slaughtering of our precious fauna and animals. Come on, councillors, have a conscience about keeping cats safe at home and therefore our wildlife safe. Safe from introduced predators. You know what you need all to do. All local MPs with connections to City of Bayswater support keeping Clause 2.2 in. I quickly read a recent letter from Amber Jade Sanderson, member for Morley, and you have an attachment of that. Hi David, thanks for your email. I am supportive of the local laws proposed by the City of Bayswater to manage the impact of local wildlife from domestic cats. I was disappointed to hear that the Delegated Legislation Committee have recommended that they be disallowed. The Parliamentary Committee is independent of the state government. I'm sure you appreciate that it cannot be directed. Thank you for your advocacy on this issue. Best wishes, Amber Jade, member for Morley. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Do any councillors have any questions for Mr Dyke? No, thank you.
Thanks.
Next deputation this evening is Ms Rachel Roberts. Thank you. And sorry, if you could just state your name, suburb, I've been remiss in that.
Rachel Roberts from Bayswater, and my deputation has been provided in written form. I hope you read that. At the end, I make 2 suggestions. If council does agree to remove clause 2.2 with respect to starting the process again quickly, and hopefully the second time round we won't end up in a position of giving an undertaking to remove clause 2.2. But in the meantime, I just have this to say. Thank you.
Can't read that. Thank you. And the final deputation on the Keeping and Control of Cats Amendment Local Law 2023 is Mr Bruce Webber. Thank you. And if you could just state your name and suburb.
Good evening, councillors, officers. My name is Dr Bruce Webber and I'm here representing the Western Australian Feral Cats Working Group. Our group in turn represents a collaboration of key stakeholders across all areas of cat management in the state, including feral, stray and pet cats. I also speak to you as a passionate conservationist and a doting pet cat owner. Tonight I will present to you the hard facts around the benefits of containing pet cats 24/7 I will show you why preventing cats from roaming represents responsible pet ownership and why this approach delivers the best possible outcomes for pet cats, their owners and native wildlife. I will present to you data that shows the general public is overwhelmingly supportive of having cats permanently contained and that Australia's leading practitioners in cat care and management agree that this is best practice. Finally, I will help you realise the far-reaching significance of your decision tonight, or next week rather, and what that means for our collective futures. First, the research tells us that the best thing that you can do for your pet cat is to keep it appropriately entertained while permanently contained. By containing owned cats indoors or giving them access to a secure outdoor enclosure, owners of pet cats essentially eliminate the risk of death due to vehicle strike, animal attacks, diseases like feline AIDS and toxoplasmosis, being stolen, abused or being impounded. Pet cats that are permanently contained live up to 10 years longer than roaming cats. And despite false claims to the contrary, pet cats do not have an essential need to roam. Even cats that are used to roaming can quickly become content when permanently contained. The RSPCA has helpful guidelines to transition roaming pet cats to being comfortable and entertained inside or in a catio. Data also reveal the sad outcomes for those who refuse to contain their pet cats. In New South Wales, 2 in 3 owners have lost a cat to a roaming-related accident. Should we willingly facilitate such inhumane outcomes for pet cats that roam? Second, the research also tells us that containing pet cats is better for their owners. Owners have a significantly reduced risk of catching what can be life-changing diseases from their cat. Roaming cats can cause tension between neighbours through nuisance behaviour, such as toileting in their yards. And for anyone that has had to witness a cat being hit by a car, you will understand the trauma that these tragic and completely avoidable events can cause to onlookers. Third, pet cats have an alarming toll on the killing and maiming of native wildlife. Australia's 5.3 million pet cats kill around 550 million mammals, birds and reptiles each year. In Greater Perth alone, this carnage represents 47 million animals every year. Pet cats are estimated to kill up to 50 times more animals per unit area compared to feral cats living free in the bush. These numbers are sobering and hard to comprehend, particularly when we consider that almost half of Australia's threatened native animals are found in urban environments. Yet in the face of this overwhelming evidence, many owners still deny that their roaming cats hunt. What the research also tells us, however, is that their impact of pet cats on wildlife are often underestimated or invisible to their owners. Only 15% of the prey killed by pet cats is brought home, and cats have been recorded roaming over more than 2 hectares or up to 5 kilometres in a single night. Hunting is a natural instinct. Most pet cats will hunt regardless of whether they've been fed or not. Nighttime curfews are not an effective solution for preventing wildlife deaths. They just change what the cat kills. During the day, birds and reptiles are more commonly killed, while at night, it's mammals and frogs. Cats often spend a long time playing with their dying prey, leaving the animal to die slowly with immense suffering. Taken together, the scientific evidence is crystal clear. Preventing pet cats from roaming is a win-win outcome for all. What was, even until very recently, portrayed as an emotive, polarising issue has now become a lot clearer once reputable information and evidence-based decisions are tabled. More importantly, as decision makers, doing our part to ensure permanent cat containment is the right and responsible thing to do. So why, with this information now at hand, are we not doing it immediately? Again, let me take you to the data. It's not because the community don't want it. In the 2019 review of the WA Cat Act, 73% of respondents supported containing cats to the owner's property. This result is now 4 years out of date, and community sentiment, largely due to improving awareness, has swung even further in support of containment.
Sorry,
Earlier
Dr.
this
Webber,
year-
you're just approaching 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. We organised a national symposium on cat management here in Perth, where Minister Whitby spoke on the importance of improving cat management. After 2 days of presentations and discussions, we asked 250 of the nation's leading experts on pet, stray and feral cat management what single change would make the biggest difference to cat management outcomes in Australia. More than 70% of attendees said the changes to enforce pet containment would deliver the greatest impact. It's also not because it's too hard. It's not too hard from a logistical perspective, Pet cat containment is implemented in cost-neutral and resource-efficient ways across many eastern states. We do not need to reinvent the wheel here, we simply need to adopt existing methods. Maybe, councillors, it's because we're lacking visionary leadership amongst our current crop of decision makers. Councillors, this is one question for which I do not have data to deliver an answer. That said, I know that littering the final speeches and dust-gathering autobiographies of decision makers across this country is a deep yearning to leave a long-term legacy. To be that inspiring leader that stood up to mediocrity, who saw the importance of being brave and swimming against the tide, who did the right thing when others were not up to the task. Councillors, tonight that dish is being served to you piping hot on a silver platter. Quite possibly, you will reflect back on this decision in the twilight years of your careers and consider it one of the most important contributions you made to the state of Western Australia. That is, if you make the right decision. To finish, I want to leave you with the counterfactual. What happens if the wrong decision is made? Again, I'm going to return to the evidence. For every year that we delay effective cat containment laws in Western Australia, we effectively endorse poor animal welfare outcomes for countless pet cats, increase the risk of human illness from cat-borne diseases, and enable the deaths of tens of millions of native animals. Choose wisely, councillors, for if you do, our pet cats, community and wildlife will be forever grateful.
Thank you. Councillors, do you have any questions for Dr. Madden? Dr. Webber, sorry. No? Thank you. So that item, that concludes deputations on this item. That item will go to next week's OCM for debate. Moving on to item 10.1.2, 2022 Annual General Meeting Response to Motions. Deputation from Ms. Rhiannon Italiano.
Hello, Rhiannon Italiano. I'm living in Embleton. Thank you for the opportunity to provide a deputation tonight. I raised motion 2 at the annual electors meeting regarding the land between properties on Homewood Way and Kingston Street, bordered by Broadway and Braun Ave in Embleton. Thank you for the city officers for their comments and recommending my motion be supported. I just wanted to provide some background as to how this motion came about for those of you who were not able to be at the electors meeting. There are 20 properties which adjoin this land, including my own. I door-knocked each property prior to the meeting. At 13 properties, I was able to speak directly with the residents, and those that weren't at home, I left a letter for explaining my planned motion and requesting they contact me if they had any concerns. Every resident I spoke with was very supportive of improvements being made and shared concerns about its current state. I first contacted the city in 2017 to report hooning, motorbikes and dirt bikes speeding through the land. I was also concerned about the maintenance of the land with rubbish being dumped and lots of weeds and prickles. After multiple emails and a meeting with the then director, a gate was installed at the Broadway end in 2018. No further improvements have been made since that time, and in fact, I believe the condition of the land has deteriorated in terms of the sand and the unevenness. Dumping continues to be an issue: furniture, e-waste, construction waste, garden waste, general bagged rubbish. Maintenance appears sporadic. When door knocking, residents have reported actually removing weeds and grass behind their properties themselves due to weeds encroaching into their properties and due to concerns about fire risks. One resident did also report that some years ago there was actually a fire, some rubbish was set alight in that land. It's very difficult to use as a pedestrian as you're trudging through sand and double Gs. It's not safe to walk dogs through due to the prickles. At least one property experiences flooding to the back of their property and shed from water runoff from Braun going into the land. The lack of lighting makes it unsafe and an easy entry point for potential burglars, and some neighbours reported that homes had been broken into via the back fence. The gate also hasn't entirely ended the hooning, unfortunately. I last reported a hoon to the police in March. It's also just very, very ugly and quite an eyesore. The officer's comments indicate that now is an ideal time to be looking at how this land could be improved for the benefit of the community, given its proximity to the new Morley train station, and I hope the motion will be supported by council. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any councillors have a question for Ms. Italiano? Thank you.
Thank you.
The next deputy is Mrs. Andrea Vinkovic. Apologies if I've mispronounced that.
No, that's good. You've done well. I'm here to speak in support of the motion to consider appointing an art and cultural officer for the City of Bayswater. And actually, most people that I spoke to about it are very surprised that there isn't one already. So we all know that arts are extremely important in a community. They are really important for the well-being of the whole community, not just the individuals in it. They transcend language, political, social, and cultural boundaries, and they seek to bring people together rather than divide them, regardless of their backgrounds, regardless of their religion or education. It is a powerful way of communicating between the different parts of the city. It preserves the history, it can change people's opinions, etc., etc. We all know how important the arts are and the culture is a part of it. I had a very brief look, and City of Belmont has an art officer, City of Vincent, City of Stirling has got the whole team. City of Kalamunda, City of Canning, City of Perth, City of Fremantle, Wanneroo, Gosnells. City of Swan has got a performing arts officer. I don't know if they have any other one. And the City of South Perth doesn't have one, as well as City of Bayswater. So being such a large and generally progressive city, I think that recommendation to appoint one is well overdue. And yes, I think that's about the gist of the motion.
Thank you. Do any councillors have a question? Thank you. All right, so we'll move on to the next section of 10.1. Oh, sorry, before we go on, the AGM responses to motions will be debated at next week's council meeting. Item 10.1.3, main power connection for mobile food vehicles at Crimea Park. We have deputation from Ms. Dehan Mercer.
Almost. Diane.
Sorry. You just state your name and suburb, please.
That's fine. Diane from Forestfield, but I store my van in Bayswater. Sorry, a bit nervous. Sorry I wasn't here last month. I was actually on holidays on leave, but my name is Dee for anyone that doesn't know me, and I am the owner-operator of Dancing Duck & Co. at Crimea Park. I started operation back in March 2022 with a small dream to create a safe, inviting environment for our community to come enjoy coffee, a good chat, and good vibes. Now, I am overwhelmed with how quickly that happened. Within 6 months, I was in the need of a staff member who is someone from the community, a 16-year-old homeschooled student who was actually my first customer with her mother, rocked up without their wallet because Green on the Go was no longer at the park of 3 months, and they didn't expect a van to be there, and here's this little white caravan with no signs, just rocked up, hoping for the best. 6 months later, this young girl's looking for a job. I'm looking for someone to help out, and what do you know, she's turning into a beautiful young lady, hardworking, and I have the honour of being her mentor. Now, in relation to this deputation, I suppose I wanted to introduce myself and kind of thank you all for your time and energy going into my proposition, and thank Dan Ball and Jasmine Thumb, who's one of my most regular customers and always supported everything I've done in helping me push to take action, because I've thought about this for a long time but been nervous to even approach. Now, in my 18 months of operating, one of my biggest setbacks and most demotivating factor has been the noise. The generator, I've had a complaint from a customer within, I think, 8 months of operation, go to council, and I was very grateful that the officer that addressed it were very understanding in finding a solution as opposed to creating a problem. And since then, I think the only negative feedback I get is from customers saying, sorry, what's that? I can't hear you because of the generator. And I would like to say I'm quite loud and energetic when it comes to my operations. And if you haven't experienced the D vibe at the van, please come past because it's something I pride myself in. When customers come, they leave with a smile, good energy, and I provide so much to the community, from kids' toys. I've had 2 major events, from Christmas party where I had over 150 attendees over the day come and enjoy free offerings, and then in April I had my first birthday party, which was a huge feat, and I had kids' soft toys, I had a face painter, and again we had probably over 50 people there at one point playing with the free toys I offered, and obviously enjoying my vibes. Now, the generator does restrict what I can do. Obviously, the noise is a big impact on the community environment. I think there's a few of you councillors that might live in the area and potentially hear the aftermath of that. And I have got one of the quietest DP decibel generators that are on the market at the moment. With the generator, it would allow me to offer more to my community. It would allow me to reduce the environmental impact, which I also thrive myself in. I have over 200 keep cups that I've sold to my customers with my brand on, and I offer 50 cents off if you use your own keep cup, which is a big thing that my customers bring their cups back. My concerns with the current proposition would be the current car bay. The layout of my van would need 2 car bays, because to pull in safely and provide onto the landing platform right now would be 2 car bays as opposed to the 6 that I currently use with my van and my ute and the generator. So that does reduce down, plus I would have one where my vehicle that I drive the van in with would be then parked parallel. So whether we don't put a allocated car bay and I just risk that one day I might rock up and there is a car parked there, but in the 18 months I've operated, it's very rarely that I get there at 5 in the morning to start my setup procedure before I turn the generator on, obviously, that there's been anyone parked there. So maybe if we can't allocate 2 bays, we just don't go with a scheduled allocated bay. I just hope that I can get into where the PowerPoint is. My second concern is, would there be any issues with running the van at full capacity while the club room is being used? Is that going to affect the power pool? Is there any restrictions on that? And overall, sorry, I'm extremely nervous. I'd like to conclude by saying I'm very proud to own and operate such a well-loved business within the community, and I hope to be able to do it for as long as possible.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do any councillors have a question? No? That item will be up for debate next week's OCM. Thank
Perfect.
you.
I'll see you then. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 10.1.4, the Maylands Brickworks Funding Options and Memorandum of Understanding, deputation by Ms Stella Gray. You just state your name and suburb.
Stella Gray, I'm from Maylands Brickworks. Firstly, I just want to say thank you to the councillors for the chance to address this item before you tonight. Secondly, I'd like to thank Deputy Mayor Councillor Earhart, who has worked tirelessly with the Friends of Maylands Brickworks in pushing the brickworks forward. The Friends of Maylands Brickworks do not support the officer's recommendations. Unfortunately, the officer's recommendations lack any depth, direction, commitment moving forward, and will lead to a lack of progress on the brickworks. Action is necessary to truly move this forward. In relation to item 1, notes the outcome of the CRG, there are many incorrect or misleading comments within the officer's report which will be forwarded to councillors separately, as there are too many to list here tonight. However, there are a couple in particular that need addressing immediately. On page 221, last paragraph, the officer appears to imply that the CRG made comment for the city to have a dedicated officer or team managing the rectification works on the project. This did not come from the CRG, and no discussion was held on this subject. General survey comments on page 225. The CRG members also included several general comments, including the city should reconsider the original Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage proposal to develop the site. This does not align with the discussion at the CRG. And the Friends of Maylands Brickworks, of course, would not support this option as it goes against community views and the council decision back in 2019. In relation to item 2, funding as part of the 2024-25 budget process, including the funding options, the first problem is the officer has rolled everything under one broad funding item. In their recommendations, they have not identified multiple funding solutions for councillors to progress. The first one is urgent funding for the essential stabilisation of the kiln. The project officer on this project, the project officers on this project were at the CRG when the consultant stated the kiln was in imminent risk of collapse, also stating if there was an earthquake, the kiln would fall down. 2 weeks ago, there was an earthquake that was down south. Why is this therefore not considered by these officers as a priority, which needs a proactive approach? Number 2 is funding for further repairs and maintenance within an ongoing yearly budget. First and foremost, the priority is to get the kiln stabilised as quickly as possible. We are now 4 years on from 2019 when this started. The City received the Cardinal report dated November 21, listing essential rectification works estimated as $138,770 for the kiln. Due to the delay in getting these reports to Council, updated figures were required, and the RBB report dated February 23 estimated the work to now be $3,560,000. This dramatic increase is just 15 months later. The current report is valid for 12 months to February 2024. Council therefore have 6 months before this price escalates once again. Recommendation by the officer for this to go to the 24-25 budget is setting the councillors an impossible task. Action is needed now to prioritise funding for the urgent stabilisation of the Brickworks kiln through investigation funding into the current 23-24 budget, not the 24-25. Prioritising the stabilisation of the kiln is a priority, and readily available funds should be investigated. This option, however, was never presented to the CRG. Progress B is to progress investigation and sale of land assets superfluous to the needs of the City of Bayswater. Of course, noting that nothing within the Brickworks Reserve is to be considered, with surplus funds from the sale to be placed in the Maylands Brickworks Reserve Fund for further restoration works. This was the preferred option of the CRG. Option C is support funding of restoration works in the mid-year 23-24 budget review. And finally, item D is the Friends of Maylands put forward at the CRG in changing the land within the Brickworks Reserve to public open space. This received 100% support from the CRG. This is to give the community security, assurance that the Maylands Brickworks site is protected from future threats of sale, development and destruction of such an important industrial cultural heritage site, including enabling the FOMB additional funding streams to pursue, including public open space grants.
Apologies, Ms Gray, you're just over 5 minutes.
Summing up. Recent project expenditure since within 2017 supported by Council includes $3.5 million for the purchase of Carter's Wetlands, $3.5 million in the Morley Sport and Recreation Centre development. Sorry, that was $5.5 million. $4.4 million stage 1 of Maylands Waterland, $1.4 million for Naranda netball courts, $7.14 million for Bayswater Waves refurbishment, and $3.1 million for land to purchase next to Len's Hansman's for a car park. We are not saying these are not worthy projects, but it is highlighting the inefficiency in prioritising of projects within the City of Bayswater. It is time the Maylands Brickworks is a priority, with funding sought within the current budget to get the stabilisation done urgently. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any councillors have a question? No? Thank you. That item will be up for debate at next week's OCM. Right, so we'll move on to item 10.4.1, proposed change of use to microbrewery and associated beer garden, alterations and additions, lot 6, number 20, Moojibing Street, Bayswater, with the First Deputy, Mr Steve Clockley.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, councillors, and thanks for the opportunity to address you tonight. I'm not usually here for things that are close to my heart, especially craft beer and smoked meat, so it's very comfortable to be here tonight. I'm just rising in support of the officer's recommendation to approve this development. I think it'll be a fantastic facility. I know there's a big following for the smoked meats facility at the moment, and I believe that that area is very run down, and this can only add to the amenity of that area. I've been very fortunate to attend the smoked meats facility for a masterclass with Perth College Dads and also with a corporate group. It was a fantastic day. We all had a great time, and I think a microbrewery attached to this facility would only enhance it. Early at the start of this year, I was fortunate enough to go to Texas. I visited Austin and I also visited San Antonio. And these facilities are quite common in a light industrial zone. They actually suit a light industrial zone, and I was very fortunate to stand in line with people and appreciate the sense of community that these places bring. So I'd just like to support that facility, and as a resident ratepayer from Maylands, I hope you do go with the officer's recommendation. So thank you. Cheers.
Thank you. Do any councillors have any questions for Mr Clockley? No. All right, we'll move on to the next deputation. Oops, pardon me, Mr Yanni Goldberg. Miss Yanni Goldberg. Yanai? No. We'll move on to the next one in the meantime. So, Miss Beth Hewitt.
Thank you. My name's Beth Hewitt. I'm speaking tonight as the Treasurer of AMRA, the Australian Model Railway Association of WA. Oh, thank you. How do I do that? Next one. Sorry, I might need some training. Which button do I press?
Just stop that in the meantime.
PDF, don't you just scroll down?
Okay. All right, great. Our club rooms are in the light industrial area off Guildford Road, an area which is going through significant redevelopment and getting very busy. In the report provided for this application, it noted that Moojibing Reserve had one club and wasn't well used. This is a misleading statement. Moojibing Reserve car park meets the needs of 3 clubs that lease the club rooms, and the 3 club rooms, and there's a hive of activity most days and nights each week. It is not an empty space waiting for a business to use to meet its parking obligations. AMRA has been around for over 50 years. In that time, we have raised the money and built our club rooms and the car park that the brewery wants to use to make up for its significant shortfall in parking. Until 15 years ago, the car park was included in our lease, and we still maintain it to this day. We have over 200 members, mainly seniors. We have a large number who are experiencing age-related disability, but also some younger members with issues like cerebral palsy. Being able to park within the car park allows our members to bring in their heavy equipment. Not being able to secure a car space due to visitors from another business makes access for many of our members extremely difficult. We are an active club. We hold running days, information nights, special interest groups and social events. Our main times will clash with the proposed operation of the brewery, particularly on Saturdays when we're open 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Since Big Don's Smoked Meats has opened up as a lunch bar, we have been significantly impacted by his customers, some of whom take to holding tailgate parties in the car park. The demands of the business has not been taken into account in calculating the parking requirements for the brewery. The change of the use application does not adequately address the connection between the 2 businesses, how they intend to work together, with food from Big Don's being taken into the brewery to be consumed with the beer. The plans do not consider the large number of staff in total that will be working and parking their cars in the area, let alone customers. The area for parking at the rear of the building is currently being used to store large amounts of firewood for use in the barbecues and also the barbecues themselves. There is no indication on the plans where this will be moved to. If left in the backyard, it will further reduce the available parking spaces. Moojibing Reserve has only 36 car spaces, including 4 disability spaces. It cannot alone make up for the shortfall of parking spaces this brewery operation is anticipated to need. Indeed, it cannot cope with the current level of parking needed now on a Saturday. On any Saturday, the surrounding streets and verges of other businesses are parked out with Big Don's customers. If they all stay for a beer or two, it'll be even greater. We are concerned that the brewery will seek additional hours to extend its hours on Friday and Saturday nights to midnight once established. We have seen that Big Don's advertising for staff at the moment to work 9-day fortnights with expectations to feed 600 to 700 heads in 5-hour period. That's to quote the ad for the job. That is an indication of how very busy this business plans to be. Even if it's not meeting the planning requirements for adequate parking, even if it were to meet the parking requirements, we would be concerned about this large number of vehicles in and out of the small area. We are already hearing, or should we say feeling, the doof-doof of the music in the brewery eating area, which has been used regularly by the lunch bar patrons. We appreciate the sound wall being built, but we would also like for some sound deadening to be built between us and the brewery so that our members can enjoy a quiet time. As it is the intention of the brewery to open at night, we feel the City of Bayswater should provide lighting in our car park for the safety of everyone. We are concerned about the firewood that is stacked against our building and other buildings, and which is both a fire risk and a rodent motel, and we would like to see that.
Sorry, Ms Stewart, you're just coming up to 5 minutes.
Yep, sure. 2 seconds. Next one. Next one. Mr McDonald has a history of ignoring the local law and planning requirements. The City of Bayswater is aware of at least one prosecution for non-compliance, and we are aware of other infringements. We are concerned that this business will continue the past behaviour and push the boundaries of the planning requirements to our detriment. In short, Moojibing Reserve car park is not an empty space waiting for a business to meet its parking obligations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do any councillors have a question for Ms Hewitt? No, we'll move on to the next deputy, which is Mr Ben Doyle. Just state your name and suburb, please.
Certainly. Ben Doyle from Planning Solutions, also a Bayswater resident. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, councillors and officers for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm also joined by Jackson Purser and probably best known to you as Big Don in relation to this application. They're the local business people behind this proposal. I'll keep this fairly quick because there's obviously been a lot of deputations. But I think it's very important that I extend my gratitude to the city's officers for their very diligent assessment of this application. In particular, Courtney Wynne, who was the lead assessing planning officer on this one and did an excellent job. Helen Smith also, and Mike Robson, and Paul Juma and Bin Long from the health officers, the environmental health section. They met with us out on site on 2 occasions. We met at the city's offices on 1 occasion to work through all the issues prior to lodgement, and then on site during the city's assessment of the proposal. The city's environmental health officers in particular were diligent in their assessment of the noise impacts and the noise modelling that was done for the proposal. Out prior to the meeting, I was chatting to a lady, just making small talk about things on the agenda, and she said, we just need more nice things in Bayswater. And I think it's really that simple. This is, as the report says, this is a rundown area that really is going to benefit from some activity. This is a much loved local business that is now increasing its offer to the local community. and providing a local microbrewery that I think Bayswater is going to be very proud of. So I'd urge you to support this next week. Very happy to answer any questions. Now, we did also send through a spreadsheet just with some responses to a number of conditions that were recommended in the report. I'm happy to speak to those now, otherwise if there's any questions. But I will probably just address the main one which is of concern, which is condition 3 relating to off-site sales of beer produced in the brewery. And look, this one's a little bit embarrassing for me in that there was clearly some miscommunication amongst the project team about the nature of the sales at the early stages of this proposal. And our report that was submitted says that there would not be sales for consumption off-site proposed as part of this. Throughout the process, it became clear that in fact there very much is, as there is with pretty much every brewery in Western Australia or Australia, that you don't brew just for people to drink it on site, you provide packaged drinks to be purchased and consumed at home. The sales did not come up as an issue at all throughout the city's assessment. It was an uncontroversial position that we said for the city. But unfortunately, it is something that we really would like to do as part of this proposal. So if condition 3 could be deleted, we've discussed this briefly with the city's officers. So certainly amongst others, we would like condition 3 to be deleted to allow for off-site consumption. As I said, there's a few other conditions, 2, 6, 8, 10 and 17. Interest of being brief, I'll go through those if there's any questions, but otherwise I'll leave it with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any councillors have questions? Councillor Ball?
Yeah, I'd be keen to hear, I know it might take a little while, but I'm always keen to hear from the proponent the amendments that they're seeking, if we can step through them.
Mr Doyle?
Certainly, thank you. So if we start with condition 2, that proposes that the hours of operation for the public trading, so for the beer hall component, are limited to 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. Wednesday to Saturday. So to start with that first part of that, we would very much like the opportunity to provide a lunchtime service on Saturdays. So if we could, as outlined in the spreadsheet there, change that opening time on Saturdays to 12 p.m, not 2 p.m. And I think we'd be satisfied with a 2 p.m. start for Wednesday to Friday. The second limb of that condition limits the hours of operation for production purposes, so brewing, operation and administrative activities. Those activities are entirely typical of an industrial area and wouldn't ordinarily be limited, particularly administration. I can't see that that's going to have any impact whatsoever. The acoustic report does confirm that those activities would comply at all times with the noise regulations. And so we would suggest that there's no need to limit when internal activities that won't generate significant amount of parking or noise or activity, we would suggest that they wouldn't need to be regulated in an industrial area.
And sorry, Mr Doyle, was that condition 6?
Sorry, no, that was condition 2.
That was still part of 2. Okay, thank you.
Condition 3, I think I've gone through that one. We'd very much like to be able to sell packaged drinks for packaged beer only produced on the site for takeaway purposes. That would comprise, I'm told, approximately 10% of the sales. So it is an important part of the feasibility of the brewery, but we would expect not a significant impact in terms of parking, traffic, noise, or other activities. So we would ask that condition be deleted. Condition 6 relates to a previous acoustic report. An early version of the acoustic report had an error which modelled the noise from the alfresco as 40 people talking at once, not 40% of people in the alfresco area talking at once, which is accepted industry approach. That was then, so based on that modelling, it was suggested that an acoustic fence would need to go there on the boundary between the site and the car park of the reserve. I think we can all agree that probably isn't the ideal outcome that anyone would be seeking. So we did subsequently firstly we reduced the area of the alfresco area, which then reduced the number of people that could be in it. And then we had the acoustic consultant correct the error with the modelling, and that confirmed that in fact that would now comply with the noise regulations, meaning that that acoustic fence is no longer required. So the officers have recommended essentially a condition requiring that fence, but then an option to submit a further acoustic report to demonstrate that it's not required. We've actually already done that. So we have the acoustic report. My understanding is it's been accepted by the officers. There's not anything raised in the report that suggests it's deficient in any way. And so we would suggest that that condition could simply be deleted, as otherwise it just incurs further cost for no benefit or no need as far as we can tell. Condition 8 is a detailed management plan that addresses the control of noise, antisocial behaviour, litter, etc. These matters are very much within the bailiwick of racing, gaming and liquor. This is what you have to do as part of your liquor licence to operate from the premises. They are the agency that's tasked with seeking and enforcing those requirements. It's done through the liquor licensing process. From a planning point of view, it is not done through the planning process. The identical condition was recommended for the Bayswater Hotel, you may recall, and Council, in considering the extensions to the Bayswater Hotel, did resolve to delete that condition from the recommended conditions. So we would say that it duplicates matters that are covered under other legislation, and that therefore means that it is not a valid condition. Condition 10 is requiring a separate application for signs. There is a sign that says beer depicted on the elevation. That's the sign that's proposed. So it's been submitted, it's been assessed, it's part of the application. We would ask that it simply be included as part of the approval. Any other signage, if it was to be proposed, we would certainly, if it's not otherwise exempt, we would lodge an application for any other signage. But again, this is one where it just seems to be another application where in fact the information's already been provided. And lastly, condition 17, this relates to the installation of no verge parking signage on the Goongarrie Street verge. I'm a staunch opponent of unnecessary signage. I think we've got far too many street signs everywhere we go. There's don't do this, don't park here, don't do that. I think that in that location and in every street everywhere, there is legislation, there is regulation that says how close you can park to an intersection on a verge, and that applies whether or not you have a sign there that says don't park on this verge. So there is already adequate means to enforce people not parking too close to the intersection that would obstruct sightlines. If there's a desire, and I'd fully support, if there's a desire to protect the street trees, which are new, from damage from vehicles parking on the verge, I would think that would be better done with the installation of small copper log bollards or similar, much more aesthetically pleasing than a sign with a yellow pole, and it would allow for lawful parking on the verge while still protecting the trees. So that would be our preferred outcome, and we'd suggest that that's something the city could do. I hope that's clear. Happy to answer any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any follow-up questions? Do any other councillors have any questions?
Thank you.
Councillor Palmer?
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. I am concerned about the wood that was piled against the neighbour's brick wall in such a haphazard manner. There was no professionalism in the way that was stacked. Is that something that's occurring all the time?
Well, that area is now shown as a car park, so I'd say that will have to cease.
That will cease. Where will the wood go? Because you'll be having twice as much now.
Well, that would be what I would probably call a Big Don problem.
So it's not in the planning, it's not a point that should be in the plan?
Well, this application is for the microbrewery,
Yep.
so the Big Don's component is already approved. This is for the microbrewery, but it shows that area as a car park. And if you've got wood stored there, I'd say it probably won't be functional as a car park. So
Thank you.
Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. Just one more. Thanks for that. Those details. That's very helpful. Can I ask this? In the deputations and in the report, there's some talk about, like you talk and yourself, you said about these big dons and there's a microbrewery. Can you explain to me the interaction between the businesses and how they'll interact?
They're two completely independent businesses. The microbrewery will essentially function, it's like a cellar door, you can imagine. And so that is an area where you can go and you can drink the beers that are manufactured there. You can also, if Big Don's is open, bring takeaway food from Big Don's to the beer hall. You could also bring your KFC or your Red Rooster or whatever. So there is a friendly relationship, but there will be certainly times when Big Don's is shut and the brewery's open, Big Don's is shut, other way around. So they are two businesses who will be close to each other and will cooperate, but they are entirely independent.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, councillors. Are there any more questions? Thank you, Mr Doyle. We'll go on to Mr Jackson Purser. If you could just state name and suburb, please. Oh, microphone, sorry.
Hello, thank you. My name's Jackson Purser. Thank you for your time. I just wanted to introduce myself as one of the owner-operators of the proposed microbrewery on Moojibing Street. So I'll be the head brewer and also the venue manager. So my history with the craft beer industry extends back about 11 or 12 years. I've been commercially brewing beer basically my whole adult life, and I support my family, 2 children, and my partner, who's a part-time celebrant, as a brewer. So I'm really excited for this project to be considered. It's something that I've been wanting to do my entire life, my entire adult life at least. Sorry. So a basic rundown on the brewery itself. It's going to be one of the smallest breweries in the state. So we have an opportunity with my background in brewing and the foot traffic in the area to install a really small brewery that's effectively going to support my wage, maybe 1 or 2 other full-timers, and then about 3 or 4 casual staff over the weekend when we're a little bit busier. It's a really, really small brewery, and the goal behind that was to produce world-class beer but control the logistics of the product. So we will not be sending beer out into the market in hundreds of thousands of litres, as most breweries decide to do when they open breweries. We plan to sell all of our beer on site for the first 3 to 5 years. That be either directly out of the tanks or as a cellar door, selling the cans that we're producing on site. So it's a really small model, it's a really lean model, and it's gonna have a really good work-life balance for myself and my family. We plan to open limited hours, 20 to 30 hours a week. Basically, as I said, there's a lot of foot traffic in the area, and I'm also not wanting to run a 60-hour venue like a lot of other breweries in the state run. Purely, I'm a brewer, not a venue manager, so we're going to run a really lean operation. So yeah, I just wanted to keep it short and quick, show my face, and if you had any questions about the brewery operations or myself, sing out.
Thank you, Mr Purser. Do any councillors have any questions? No, thank you.
Thanks very much.
I'll just circle back and see if Yanai Goldberg has arrived. No, so we'll strike that one out. All right, so that concludes deputations on this item. That will be going to full council next week for debate and determination. Thank you. We'll move now on to item 11.2. Councillor Peterson Pick, proposed alternative use of Gibney Reserve Pavilion for out-of-school hours care. Mr Paul Andridge. Will you just state name and suburb, please? No, it's...
Okay, thank you. Paul Andridge, I'm the principal of Maylands Peninsula Primary School and I reside in Bayswater. Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor, thank you, councillors and officers for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. I'm basically here to sort of put the case forward for the Gibney Reserve Pavilion being rezoned, so the possibility of an out-of-school hours facility being established on its site. By way of background, our school is suffering in regards to enrolment pressure. Our school opened in 2004 with 280 students, we're now up to 750, and our numbers are predicted to hit 800 in the coming years. So the lack of out-of-school options in our the Maylands and Bayswater area is well known. Our school community is currently serviced by two off-site providers, that being the Off Centre at Richard Street in Maylands, which is part of the Bayswater group, and also the Kids Care located in Inglewood. Now, both of these facilities are at maximum. I often have many parents approach me in the school each morning or via email to say, listen, what can we do about before school, out of school care options for our students, and also vacation care as well, because that's another thing that does not really come into the mix, but is quite important for our school community. Between 2016 and 2019, our school community had access to another out of school hours provider called Helping Hands, which was based at the old Maylands primary school site on Guildford Road. However, at the end of 2019, Helping Hands closed its Maylands service because costs associated with transporting the students off-site made the service financially unviable. This conversation around out-of-school hours care has sort of been raised at our P&C level, our school board level. I have Clayton Hanrahan with me here tonight, who is our school board chair, which also gives some perspective from the school community that he represents. In June 2021, I addressed the council regarding the out-of-school care needs of our school community. I raised the prospect of seeking the support of council and investigate the option of out-of-school hours provider utilising the unused office space within the Gibney Reserve Pavilion, which sits alongside our school. It is my understanding that the Football West lease over the pavilion expires in the very near future. To the best of my knowledge, the building itself has only been utilised as a storage for equipment for Football West, and with a new state football centre in Queen's Park now in operation, there might be the opportunity to revisit the possibility of using this space for out-of-school hours care. The prospect of our school site, I know that's something that may be in the thoughts and minds of the councillors about the school itself providing opportunities for an out-of-school hours provider to come onto school site, is a no. I already have 10 transportable classrooms on our school site. I have another 2 transportable classrooms arriving over the summer break. So we do not have adequate facilities to run an out-of-school hours care facility on our school site. Our primary purpose for being is in education, and it doesn't really extend to out-of-school hours care. The Gibney Reserve Pavilion would be the ideal option for the school and our parent caregiver community. It is a matter of metres from the school, and it's sufficiently large enough to house an OSH centre, has the required facilities in terms of access to toilets and kitchen spaces, does not involve the crossing of roads by students, and has ready access to open space and council playgrounds for after-school activities and adequate parking facilities for parents and caregivers. Prior to the closing of their doors, I spoke with the management of Helping Hands to discuss possible alternatives for this service, which included the Gibney Reserve Pavilion option. The management team indicated to me that any number of out-of-school hours providers would jump at the opportunity to lease a space at a short stroll from the school. Furthermore, any costs associated with the retrofitting of the space to meet childcare regulations would be covered by the company itself rather than the business or council that they lease the premises from. This was the business model that had been proven successful in many similar situations where sites required alteration to bring them up to code. I noted reading through the documentation before council that must have been a similar arrangement entered in with Football West, where they contribute, I think, something like $80,000 to the fitting out of that space to fit their needs. What I'm proposing is that any out-of-school hours care provider would do the similar thing. Provided they were able to access a long-term lease, they would stump the money up quite quickly because childcare is actually a big business for them. So they would look at refitting the office space, putting up additional fencing, putting in additional playgrounds if required, even though there's a quite big new facility over the other end of Gibney Reserve. But they would cover all those costs. So there would be no cost position or cost risk to the council if the proposed proposal went ahead. The City of Bayswater has been a strong and passionate supporter of our school, most recently with the Safe Routes to Schools initiative, which is greatly appreciated. And we believe the discussion around out-of-school hours care is an important one, not just for our school community, but the residents of Maylands and Bayswater in general. It would be my hope that the City of Bayswater seriously consider the possibility of rezoning the pavilion for the purposes of out-of-school hours care. In my view, there will be a far greater benefit to the Maylands and Bayswater community utilising this space for this purpose, where there is a clearly identified need in a suburb with a lack of out-of-school hours options, rather than a storage area for a few bags of soccer balls and some witches' hats, which is essentially what that area is used for since Football West left to go over to their current office facilities in East Perth. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any councillors have a question for Mr Andrich? Yes, Councillor Eveson.
Yeah, thank you for your deputation. I'm just interested because a lot of schools are having overcrowding issues in the area, I have noticed. Does the school have access to an assembly area or hall that's not used after school?
We do, but we do have some other commitments with some out-of-school hours groups that utilise that facility. Some of our Indian community use that as a dancing area where they go and do that stuff. We also use that space for some after-school activities with our kids, with sporting activities and the like. Yeah, the scout, even though I haven't seen them very often, but I think the local Sea Scouts down at Maylands have got an option of using that space if required when it's too wet.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a question? No, thank you, Mr Andrich. And the next deputy is Mr Clayton Hanrahan. And if you could just state your suburb, please.
Clayton Hanrahan, Maylands. Deputy Mayor, councillors, officers, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. As I said, my name's Clayton Hanrahan. I have the privilege of holding the role of Chair of the Maylands Peninsula Primary School Board. I'm here to speak in support of the proposed alternative use of the Gibney Reserve Pavilion raised by Councillor Pitterson-Peck. Paul's covered a lot of detail, which I won't repeat, obviously, but my children have been students and attended Maylands Peninsula for the last 8 years, where 2 of them continue their schooling at this time. And during this time, we also utilised out-of-school care when it was available with Helping Hands. So in a first-hand scenario, we've experienced some of the challenges that occur with Helping Hands closing down in 2019. Here to speak both as a board member and clearly as a parent. We discussed this proposed change as an agenda item at our most recent school board meeting, and support was unanimous across parent, teacher and community board members. And tonight I speak on their behalf. We'll touch on a couple of key points just to complement Paul's points. From a parent's point of view, the Gibney Reserve Pavilion is a perfect facility for out-of-school care. It does offer a number of points that, if anything was possible on site, that wouldn't be available. The open area is nowhere near to the quality of what the pavilion could provide for out-of-school care. And the option of being able to have it on adjacent to the school site at a time where most parents are juggling multiple commitments and barely managing day-to-day life and cost of living pressures, let alone trying to navigate logistical nightmare of getting kids backwards and forwards from schools. There's, as mentioned, very limited current options in our areas. So logistics become the hardest place. To find a building similar in a close location has proved difficult, and obviously to construct something in that precinct would be unlikely and timely. This building is in place, as Paul mentioned. Football West now have a new taxpayer funded facility, significantly upgraded as well, which could, with the lease running out, give us this great alternative. It's also noted that parking would need to be considered. Maylands, like most primary schools, already faces challenges around parking. So actually one of the biggest benefits from a parent point of view, and like Paul, I get a lot of parents asking me about what the school could do to support out of school care. And the previous solution with Helping Hands, one of the biggest interfaces was the buses arriving. The current car park isn't set up or made for buses to come and go at our peak times. So again, on-site alternative would be an amazing addition to the school and also alleviate that traffic at what's already a peak and congested time. So, yeah, like I said, most other points Paul has covered. So I hope you can see this is a valuable initiative and would be a priceless addition to our community. And what we see as parents and the school board is a win-win outcome with your support, with the positives far outweighing any perceived risks. Thank you for your time and opportunity to speak on behalf of our school.
Thank you. Do any councillors have a question? No, thank you. And apologies, I've got here Miss Natalie Latter that there's a written deputation, but you'll also be in attendance. Did you want to present that? Yes, thank you.
Thank you all for hearing from me tonight. I wasn't sure if I was going to make it here, so I submitted a written deputation, but I have some things to add, if that's okay. I want to speak to you as a parent of a child in pre-primary at Maylands Peninsula Primary School, and I've initiated a petition to support the motion to change the zoning to allow out-of-school care provider to operate from the pavilion. The practical issue of the shortage of before and after school care at Maylands Peninsula Primary School is a financial issue and an equity issue for a lot of parents, including myself. It's particularly so for mothers who are still the majority of primary carers. They can't return to work in the way that they might like because of this shortage of after-school care. This also creates financial strain on households. I've heard this story again and again from other parents, and it's pretty outrageous in 2023 that people are still facing these obstacles around childcare and work. The wait lists are so long that many people give up, and the options that are currently available are not very suitable for young children as young as my child, because they require them to wait around for a long time after school, be bussed to another location, or walk in the rain or the heat after an already long day. I've spoken to people whose children are now in year 12 who had similar issues when those same kids were in primary school at Maylands, so it's been going on for a really long time. The motion put forward by Councillor Peterson-Pick is currently the only one that could begin to deliver us a solution in the near future, hopefully before my kid is in high school. And even though parents have been forced to live with the current situation for a really long time, it is actually an urgent issue because its impact on our lives right now is very real. So I urge you to treat this issue as an urgent one and vote for the motion so we can begin to remedy the problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Palmer, did you have a question for Ms Latter?
Thank you very much. You say you have a petition.
Yes.
Thank you. How many so far, please?
I think we're at 225. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, and Councillor Ostaszewski.
Thank you. Thanks for your deputation tonight, and thanks for talking about the financial strains and obstacles and all of those bits and pieces. You mentioned in your deputation that wait lists are long at the moment for a daycare, and there aren't many options available out there for people. So I'm just wondering, is this daycare facility, or the out-of-school care facility, is it going to be exclusively used for students from the Maylands Peninsula, or will there be, or will it be accessible by other students and parents from other schools around the area? So we're talking about there being demand. So yeah, is this facility available to other people as well? And considering the demand, do you feel as though that will actually have an impact on how many children from Maylands Peninsula can go to that facility?
I guess that's not up to me to determine who can access that facility. That would be up to whatever negotiations happen between the city and whoever wants to lease the building. But I imagine given its proximity to Maylands and the problems with sending your kid to an off-site provider, that most of the demand would come from the school, if not all of it.
Thank you.
Do any other councillors have a question? No, thank you. This
Thanks.
item will be up for debate at next week's OCM. Okay, councillors, several written deputations, that's the conclusion of in-person deputations this evening. There have been several written deputations. These have been provided to councillors and are available on the city's website with a list of deputations, and I'll take all of those as being read. We move on to item 7, questions on agenda reports. We'll now ask questions on items that were the subject of deputations. So, councillors, do any councillors have questions on any of the items that were a subject of a deputation this evening? Well, sorry, Councillor Eveson and Councillor Johnson. Councillor Eveson.
Yeah, just the first one on 10.4.1. This is the proposed brewery. Just from the city, there was some images in the deputation with lots of cars parked on verges and that sort of thing. So I just was interested in how many infringements have been issued around that area in the last 12 months?
Through the chair, if you don't mind, I might take it on notice and provide that information to councillors before next week's council meeting.
I've
Yes.
got another one on that one as well. So the other one was just around noise. So there's obviously an industrial area, there's going to be noise around. I have been made aware that there is noise concerns around the area, but has the city come to the bottom of what's causing the noise concerns by residents in that area?
Through the chair, I might just see whether the manager of statutory planning.
Madam Mayor, there are concerns relating to the operations of the lunch bar, which have been taken up with the current operator. In terms of noise, I'd have to get the specific details, but Environmental Health had been investigating some matters.
Nice. And just the last one on that same item. Given that we received a document from the applicants today, is there any, maybe some preliminary discussion, it sounds like has been had, can the city give us some guidance on, I guess, the proposal that was sent through from the applicants?
Through to the director,
To
manager.
you, Madam Mayor, I can give some preliminary responses to the proposed conditions to be amended. Condition 2 relating to the hours of operation, the application was advertised with hours of Wednesday to Saturday from 2 till 10, so any proposed change in hours would obviously be inconsistent with what the community were made aware of, so the council would need to give consideration to that matter. The city in terms of condition 3, the matter of retail sale of alcohol from the premises wasn't considered in the proposal in terms of the planning assessment, so we don't have any particular issue with removal of that condition. In relation to condition 6, I did manage to speak to the manager of environmental health, and apparently there's some assumptions which the city's environmental health officers are not satisfied with in relation to the acoustic report and that proposed fence. So we would need to take that matter on notice to get some further information to provide back to council. In terms of condition 8, this is a standard condition which the city imposes on all approved licensed premises, namely the council has recently seen seasonal brewing. In terms of the Bayswater Hotel, that was removed from the recommended conditions. However, I note that it was reimposed by Development WA. They saw that there is a nexus with how the use operates, and any complaints in relation to waste and in particular noise are followed up by the city's environmental health officers, so it's a very relevant condition from our point of view. Condition 10, it's a standard condition. Should the council wish to impose it as an advice note, that could be appropriate in this instance. Condition 17, there's some existing street verge trees on the Goongarrie verge. Obviously, the parking of vehicles on verges isn't generally included in the calculations for the provision of car parking. The city has also been actively taking compliance action against the loss and damage of street trees throughout the city of Bayswater, and we would see this as an important protection of those trees, that parking not be allowed on that particular verge. Yeah, and that concludes those conditions.
If I can just add to the chair, so what we will do is that we'll review those conditions, because there's a couple of conditions at least that we're looking at possibly deleting or amended, so we'll do an addendum to address those.
Yeah,
matters.
if I can just follow up on that one as well, if I could just have it taken on notice, just commentary around the applicants' planning solutions suggestion there in relation to condition 17 around the bollard placing around the verge trees for their protection in lieu of having no parking signs. If I could just get commentary on that one on notice, thank you. Do any other councillors have a question on this item? Councillor Peterson-Pick.
Yes, thank you. So we did have a deputy from the nearby club. Can the city just explain if there is any conflict between the application and what they were saying? So they raised lots of concerns. Can the city address those issues, please?
I'll go through to manager.
Through you, Madam Mayor, there have been concerns and conflict on site with the persons who visit the lunch bar, and obviously this the lunch bar has been approved, and what we're dealing with tonight is the deputation relates to the microbrewery. On the website of the Model Railway meetings, they do have fairly regular meetings, and there will be conflict when the users are operating at the same time. We have looked at the fact that it's a public car park. It's not set aside for those clubs that use Moojibing Reserve. This application has been assessed on the grounds that there is sufficient car parking within the site and supplementary car parking within the surrounding streets. So it's, there will be times when both uses will operate at the same time.
Thank you.
Did any other councillors have a question on this item? No? Did any councillors have questions on any other item that was on the deputations list this evening? Councillor Peterson-Pick.
I have questions with regards to item 10.3.3. They were all written deputations. Should I ask them now, or should I wait?
Oh, so this was for, so that was a written deputation.
low
We're
cost.
just doing the verbal ones at the moment. We just want to close that one off. So were there any other questions on verbal deputations this evening? Councillor Palmer.
Thank you. Just on 10.1.1, I just wondered how much we'd spent on legal expenses with cat containment.
I'll go through to the CEO on that one.
Yeah, through the chair, I'd have to take that on notice, Councillor Palmer, and I'll ascertain how much we've actually spent to date and then circulate that out to councillors.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson, you listed it here as having a question for 10.1.1.
Apologies. I'm wondering if I could get an update on what would be the consequences if we were to reinstate clause 2.2, please.
Through to the CEO.
Yeah. Through the chair, the consequences of that is actually listed in the legal advice, so more than happy at the end of the agenda briefing forum to give councillors a bit of an update in relation to that process.
Thank you.
Did any other councillor have a question on this item? No. So we'll go through then to the questions that have been pulled, and that will include through to items on that were subject of written deputations. So we'll go through the next one that was pulled was item 10.3.3, low cost urban road safety program. Councillor Peterson Pitt.
Yes, sorry, I'm just bringing it up. Okay, yes, I have several questions, please. Sorry, it's all that in the attachment, sorry. My first question, is this project deals only with car movements, or it also includes any impacts on pedestrians and cyclists?
I'll go through to the director.
Yeah, through the chair, the project is primarily around vehicle movements and about traffic calming and reducing speeds and running through those areas. Pedestrians are still a consideration in that road environment.
So just a follow-up question on this one. So are you saying that, so have pedestrians and cyclists been taken into account, those issues, or it's just the focus on car and car drivers? I just didn't, it wasn't clear.
Yeah, through the chair, those treatments are related to vehicles and vehicle movements, but when those treatments are looked at, pedestrians are still considered. So if there's any negative impacts on pedestrians in the area, then that is also considered in those treatments.
Okay. So I've seen a lot of data about the crash data, etc., but I couldn't see any information around pedestrian movements in those areas. So has the city also looked about those movements and how then the proposed treatments might affect those movements? For example, if pedestrians are walking, lots of pedestrians are walking, or locals going to a specific park and there is a new treatment proposed, how will that impact them? Was that looked at?
Yeah, through the chair, maybe a little bit of an explanation on terms of how this project was initially delivered. We were given a list of treatments that were recommended by Main Roads. They've basically looked at crash statistics and worked out a range of treatments that they recommend in terms of delivering in those areas. What the city has done, we've gone out to the community and spoken to the community and taken some of their feedback in terms of what they know occurs in those areas. So it's what we call lived experience in terms of what they know and have witnessed. So that is combined together with those crash stats that Main Roads have compiled, and we make adjustments to the plans that Main Roads have recommended. So part of that process would be that when we talk to the residents, it is probably primarily around vehicle movements and the experiences they have in terms of what occurs on those roads. But if they do raise something regarding pedestrians, then that would also be considered in those comments.
Thank you. Now, some of the treatments that are being proposed, I'm sorry, I just missed the numbers. I can't find my notes here. With regards to the Shen Park precinct, I think there are 3 treatments that are called special treatments and they have not been provided, right? Do we know what treatments are being proposed, and are we as a council, as a city, seeking our approval for those treatments without having details?
Through the chair, in those particular circumstances, the normal treatments that are being applied generally in these areas are not applied to those particular intersections because they have a slightly different situation that needs to be dealt with. So those particular treatments are more customised in terms of what occurs, what needs to occur at those intersections to deal with the issues that are there. In terms of those treatments, I don't have the information on hand what they are. I'm not sure if the project manager has any further information, but we could also take that on notice and provide it before the council meeting.
Thank you. So just to clarify that, so Are we, the city is seeking our approval for those treatments as well, those 3 treatments?
That is correct.
Okay, so it will be good to actually find out more about them. I have a few questions about the roundabouts. There are proposed several mini roundabouts in all the precincts. What will be the impacts on pedestrians and cyclists? Will there be any impacts on them by introducing mini roundabouts and removing the stop signs, the existing stop signs?
Yeah, through the chair, mini roundabouts is an interesting topic because there's not a lot of literature out there in terms of the crash statistics and what actually happens with the mini roundabouts. They're a relatively new type of treatment. Most of our roundabout treatments are larger, and a lot of the information and statistics that we have on roundabouts are related to the larger roundabouts, not the mini ones. We've got to understand the mini roundabouts, the intersection is not changing too much in geometry. It's just basically putting a really small roundabout in the centre of that intersection. When you talk about the larger roundabouts, you do a lot more modifications, and there are the cars do operate slightly differently in those larger ones. So at this point in time, we don't have a lot of information. All we know is that the mini roundabouts do work in terms of slowing traffic down, and that's probably the most important thing, is to get the traffic down. What we do know is that typically we'll slow vehicles down to about 30 kilometres an hour through that intersection.
Sorry, my apologies, Mr. Boddicker. It's just come to my attention. Sincerest apologies. I actually have a proximity interest in this one because I live in the zone for Shern Park Precinct. So I'll hand over the remainder of this question to the CEO until the questions have finished on this item.
So my question was a bit different. It was about the removal of the stop signs. So in those intersections where we are now, the proposal is to introduce roundabouts, we currently have stop signs in 2 directions. Those stop signs will be removed. So my question is whether the removal of those stop signs will have any impact on pedestrians and cyclists. Pedestrians, for example, will not have the right to cross the road anymore. They will have to wait until all the cars are clearing. So is there any impact for pedestrians and cyclists by those proposals with regards to the roundabouts?
Yeah, through the chair, it does change. The rules do change, obviously, with roundabouts. Vehicles don't give way to pedestrians. Pedestrians have to give way to vehicles. So there is a change in terms of how that operates or how that interaction occurs between pedestrians and vehicles. In terms of the actual crash statistics and the safety aspects, we do not have much information on that, and it's probably something that we need to monitor if those treatments go in. Part of the recommendation is to monitor those treatments for a 6-month period and basically bring a report back to council on what we find.
Thank you. I think my last question, also about the roundabouts. Is there any risk that by introducing them and removing the stop signs, for example, along Coode Street in Maylands, there's the proposal to introduce, I think, 3 mini roundabouts and removing all the stop signs. Is there any risk that that street will now, or that road will now become an area for red running? Because previously there were lots of stop signs. Now there will be actually a way to go through quickly. And will that have any impact on residents?
Through the chair, again, that's probably something that we'd have to monitor. With a mini roundabout, there's still a give way function at all the legs of that intersection, where previously with the stop signs, you'll find that that the stop signs only work in one direction. In terms of the vehicles coming the other direction, they can just drive through. But what we'll do is we'll actually monitor the performance of the treatments once they're put in.
So I do have 2 more questions. The roundabouts, are they going to be temporary or are they going to be permanent?
They'll be permanent.
Permanent. So if the monitoring that you just mentioned indicates a problem, what will happen then?
Through the chair, probably the worst case scenario would be that they'd be removed. But when I say removed, we're not talking about doing major road modifications. I mean, the roundabout just sits in the centre of the road and has some different controls put on the actual legs of the intersection. So we're not talking about major changes in terms of major geometry changes to the road. So that could easily be removed and replaced.
Thank you. Is it correct that this is the first time that we see this item since we started the consultation, right? The item did not come to us to council after the first engagement process, is that correct?
That's correct.
Can we, because I couldn't see it, can we see all the feedback that we received from residents, all the stats about what they thought that the best treatments are? Because what we see now is what was the selected treatments by the city, but we can't actually see what the feedback that came from our residents. Can we actually see those stats and the comments that people raised?
Yeah, through the chair, if you're wanting the raw data, we can provide that. There is a lot of information there. We can provide it though.
I'm looking for something that I can process easily and understand what the feedback from our residents was, because it's not in the report.
Yeah, we can provide that information. Yep.
Thank you. And my last question, if I can, sorry, CEO. So have we received any feedback about pedestrian issues? Because one of the treatments that was proposed was introducing pedestrian crossings, and now there is not one suggested pedestrian crossing in any of the treatments in any section of the city. So should we understand that no issues were raised by the community about crossings?
Through the chair, in terms of the specific responses that we had, I'm not sure whether how many there's been about pedestrians. What I can do is take that on notice and provide that with the information in terms of those responses.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Okay, councillors, any other further questions on item 10.3.3? Councillor Johnson?
Thank you. Probably a bit on similar lines, we have received some written deputations on this item, particularly in regard to cycling. I'm sorry, I haven't read, having just received them, I haven't read all of them in detail, but I'm just wondering if the city could provide, and happy for this to be taken on notice, of course, some information or advice on how these plans conflict with the with any routes that are on the long-term cycling network, please, so we can just see where there's conflicts between cyclists and roundabouts might occur. Thank you. And one other question, it's a bit more a practical one, where this where this program's been rolled out in other areas, we're still waiting for Main Roads to put their signs and lines in all the right places. I'm just wondering when that's likely to happen for the current areas, but also if in future where these works, will that be happen a bit quicker?
Yeah, through the chair, in terms of the line marking and the signage, they're out of our control. Main Roads deliver those aspects of the project. It is delayed, severely delayed, and but it's not a problem with us, it's a problem across the state. I've been to other council areas and they're waiting the same, some maybe even longer. So we don't have the information yet in terms of when they're going to arrive. It is contracted out. I think it's just, there's a backlog of work and we're just waiting for our turn to come up.
Can I ask a follow-up on that? So thank you for that. Appreciate it. And likewise, I have seen that in other local government areas as well. Do we have any idea when the lines and signs in the current areas would be done?
At this point in time, we don't have any advice from Main Roads, but we will follow that up with them.
Thank you.
So, councillors, any other further questions on 10.3.3 before we move on? Okay, thank you. Can you call the Deputy Mayor back in?
Thank you. We'll move to the next item that was noted for a question, which was item 8.4.1, Delegates Report for Algo 2023. Councillor Johnson.
Oh, thank you. Yes, so these are things that I said in advance that I'd ask questions on. So my question on this one, so I've had two. One was in the delegates' report, they talk about, I'm sorry, I lost my highlighting. So I think it was the Prime Minister had mentioned a $100 million energy efficient fund. I'm just wondering if the city is eligible for any funding under that fund.
Through the chair, I'm happy to take that on notice and get the details in relation to the fund. It was a very broad announcement at the time, and it was actually discussed at the climate breakfast that we went to as well, but there wasn't any specific details, but more than happy to follow that up.
Thank you for that. And my other question, yes, was relating to the Climate Leaders Breakfast, but because it was noted in the report that the Mayor attended, I thought it might be more appropriate to ask the Mayor. But my question in general was if there are any insights from that breakfast that you would be able to share with us.
I think the Deputy Mayor, you actually did...
No, I went to the Australian Local
Did
Government
you?
Women's.
Yeah, we've got the information in relation to that in terms of all the pamphlets and that, so I'm more than happy to pass those on.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item that was noted for questions was item 10.3.5, Tender 02-2023, Arboreal Cultural Consultancy Services. Councillor Johnson and then Councillor Peterson-Pick.
Thank you. My questions were quite broad around 10.3.5, 10.3.6 and 10.3.7. I think all of them are recommending a panel, essentially, of the folk that tendered, and I'm just wondering if I could get some information on if that's a different approach or how that works in practice and how that's managed to make sure that, and how that's managed. Thank you.
Mr. CEO, or through to the Director.
Yeah, through the chair. We've moved to panel contracts. Probably the main reason why we've done that is to basically have a list of contractors that we can access at any stage. So the thinking is that if we lock in only one supplier and that supplier can't supply, then we've got to basically go out to market again to find a second supplier. Like this, we basically have them all put on the panel, and what the city then does is that we go to the cheapest price when we go out to engage somebody. If they're not available, then we can move to the next cheapest through that process. It is a slightly different approach to what we normally do, but we are moving to that way simply because some of these services that we require, we need companies that are there ready to go. Things like tree watering, for example. If something goes wrong with a contract and we've only got one contract in place, then we run into problems trying to find somebody else to pick it up, and a lot of times we'll lose valuable time and we'll lose trees and lose and have other problems in terms of trying to maintain that service.
Thank you. Appreciate the clarification. Yeah, just ask really how that's sort of followed up in terms of, or how that's managed in terms of, I'm not sure what the question is, so don't worry about it, sorry.
That's all right. Councillor Peterson-Pick.
Yes, thank you. My questions are specifically with regards to 10.3.5, the arboricultural consultancy services. So how much money are we planning to spend on this? Tony says that it will be above $250,000. So how much money exactly are we planning to spend?
Through the chair, I might have to take that on notice and provide that information.
Thank you. My follow-up question on that one is, can the city explain why this can't be done in-house, even if the money is being used to have a new FTE specializing in this area? What's the advantage for us to go and pay for a consultant instead of having another arborist that can deal with this?
Yeah, through the chair. There are particular cases where we go to consultants because they have specialist equipment and they have skill sets and particular knowledge in different sciences that our officers don't have. So we do have an arborist on board. We do have an arborist that can produce reports but this is more for some specialist services, so things like understanding what's going on inside trees, where they need to do some readings and use specialist equipment. We don't have that equipment. We don't have the people trained up for that. Also, in terms of some of the aerial inspections of trees, we do go out to people who have that equipment and have those qualifications to be able to do that.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions on this item, 10.3.5? No, we'll move on to the last item that was indicated for questions was item 10.5.1.9, annual report on council approved strategies. Councillor Johnson and then Councillor Peterson-Pick.
Thank you. In general, my questions on this item are really around the report back on how we're going on the strategies. So I guess in general, it's hard for me to see that we're on track with some of the responses. So I won't ask questions on too many of them, but one of them in particular is the, sorry, let me find the right page. The environment and livability framework. I think in the report it says this is on track, but I can't see from the answers that doesn't give me comfort that we are on track. That wouldn't be in my assessment of the reading. I'm just wondering if we can get more information on that one in particular, please, and happy to have that taken on notice.
Yep. On notice, thank you. Did you have a follow-up question to that one, Councillor Johnson?
That's the only one on that one, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Peterson-Pick.
Yeah, I actually had the same question. I also noticed that what it says on track, I don't think it is on track from what I read in the report. And I'll give a different example if the city can also look into that. With regards to the disability and inclusion, the DAPE plan that we have. Actions 2.4, for example, improve the pedestrian network accessibility within town centres. It says on track, but the comment says that we will need to engage a contractor. So I would assume that then it's not on track. It means that it's pending funding. So it says here pending funding. So if it's pending funding, it can't be on track. So maybe the city can review all the on track just to make sure, and maybe if it's not correct, it would be good to know. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take that on notice. Were there any more questions on this item? Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Apologies, I couldn't send it in because I've only, studied the thing today. 10.3.2, that's the Bath Road roundabout land acquisition. I just wondered how many, the land area, because I couldn't see it on the plans. Thank you.
Through to the Director.
Sorry, can I just have that question repeated?
Thank you. This is 10.3.2, Bath Road roundabout land acquisition. Just to find out what the land area for acquiring, if we knew approximately what it was. Thank you.
Yeah, through the chair, it is actually provided in the report. There's a table there. The required land, so from lot 205, the land to be taken from that is 598 square metres, and from lot 50, it's 1,222 metres.
It's on page 71 of the report, Councillor. Councillor Peterson-Pick.
Yes, thank you. I did indicate that I do have a few questions about this one, 10.3.2. Has the city or Main Roads undertook any public consultation around converting public open space to a road?
Through to the Director.
Through the chair, my understanding is that they have advised people in the area that there's going to be these changes in terms of the road layout. And there was also, we offered through one of our LCURS public sessions, we actually had Main Roads personnel come to that as well to talk about the project.
Just to clarify, so has Main Roads notified the residents in the area that it is happening and sought feedback? And if they did, can we see the feedback? Because it's not mentioned in the report.
Through the chair, what I'll do is I can take that on notice and I'll provide the information in terms of what was provided out to the people.
Thank you. Are there any trees being removed as part of that conversion of public open space to a road?
Through the chair, yes, there will be. There are quite a few trees. Most of the trees that are coming out are juvenile trees, but those trees need to come out because of the size of the roundabout that will go in there.
Are we able to get some figures? How many trees, which trees, what are we talking about, mature, juvenile? Yeah, because it's not in the report.
Yeah, through the chair, I can provide a drawing that actually shows which ones.
Thank you. Thank you. And my last question, what will be the, if council does not support that, what will be the other alternative? Can other options be proposed that will deal with the situation but without taking the public open space? For example, lights. Are lights an alternative option? Introducing lights at that intersection.
Through the chair, it's been identified that roundabout's probably the best solution in terms of that intersection. Traffic lights could be a solution as well, but there's also implications in terms of traffic lights. I don't know all the full details, but I do know that the traffic lights will impact on how the interchange works with the Tonkin Highway. So the preference is a roundabout to go in. Traffic lights will probably be a bit more complicated in terms of trying to get them in. Main Road's preference is to go with the roundabout. So if this does not go ahead, obviously we'll go back to the drawing board with Main Roads, but there's no guarantee that it'll be traffic lights. It could potentially be some sort of other treatment.
Thank you.
Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. Sorry, I also had some questions on this one. So thank you. Just, I think I'm just wondering about, obviously we've had a lot of talk about the traffic on Bath Road, and I think, is it correct that it has changed since the opening of the freeway in that change of the big roundabout at the end of Morley Drive?
Through the chair, yes, putting that type of interchange will change the traffic patterns along Morley Drive.
Yeah, it's interesting that it crash stats in there. This is not the location, is this? No, it's not. Is this the location where we removed trees because it was too dangerous to turn?
Through the chair, I think that was Emberson and Morley Drive.
Okay, so a few hundred metres, maybe 100 metres up the road. So I think we had to remove the trees because it was a 70 zone, and we're having accidents here because it's a 70 zone. I noticed, in one of the mayor's motions without notice, also on this road, the problem is that it's a 70 zone. Has the city or Main Roads considered changing the speed limit on this road?
Through the chair, I understand that's been in the conversation in the past, but Main Roads are reluctant to change the speed limit on that road.
Okay, thank you. On the map on the bottom of our page 70, so I don't know what it would be in the public agenda, it says 404. It's described, I've never seen this before, Karrinyup Morley Highway. I'm wondering if there's still plans for Karrinyup Morley Highway.
Through the chair, I believe that's just how it's described in some of Main Road's drawings.
Okay, I'm hoping that would be redundant given we've got Reed Highway just up the road. Yeah, just the road reserve there is quite large. Is one of the trees to be removed a mature WA Christmas tree?
Through the chair, that will be protected, so it's identified in the drawings that it will be protected. So we'll have some barriers put around it, and they'll ensure that it doesn't get affected through the works or after the works are completed.
Councillor Peterson-Pigg.
Yes, thank you. I do have a follow-up question. Can we understand what will be the impact to the public open space in Morley if this is done? What is the current public open space figures for stats for Morley, and what will be after this?
We'll have to take that one on notice.
Thank you.
Councillor Bull.
Thank you. I just have a question, just trying to interpret the map that Georgia mentioned just now. When the one on the bottom of page, what page number was it, Georgia? 70 or 404 if you're playing at home. Is it that the road will follow, like be between the green lines?
Through the chair, the green lines should be the curb line.
Cool.
So
Okay.
generally the front face of the curb, that's what the green line should be.
And so I just want to double check, based on a question that Georgia mentioned, is one of the green lines going through that Christmas tree? Or am I looking at the wrong one?
Through the chair, we do have a different set of drawings that clearly identifies a tree and shows that it's protected and it won't be affected.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Through the
Mr.
chair to the director, could that drawing be attached to the report as an addendum, just to give certainty for the councillors and community that that would be protected? We can do that between now and next Tuesday, councillors, and issue that.
Thank you. Were there any more questions on this item?
No.
Did any other councillors have any questions on any other items on the agenda? Councillor Palmer.
Thank you. On 10.3.4, the better bins, just two quick questions. We have there the counting of 29 compassionate accommodations with regard to bin collection. I wondered if we had any Airbnb calculations to see how many are in the city. That's one question.
I'll go through to the director on that one.
We'll have to take that one on notice.
Thank
It'll
you.
be taken on notice.
And also, I wondered what the costs were for education of FOGO during the previous education, how much that was, so I can compare any future costs. Thank you.
That'll all be on notice? Yeah, so that'll be taken on notice. Thank you, Councillor Palmer. Councillor Johnston, did you indicate there was another item?
Sorry, yeah, I did have a question on 10.1.8 and another question on 11.2.
Okay, we'll go 10.1.8.
Thank you. So this refers to 10.1.8 refers to the Walgett AGM and the motions that will come out of it. Do we know when they're going to be made public? When will the Walgett AGM motions? It's a gap in the agenda for that item, and I'm just wondering when that will be available, please.
Thank you.
Through the chair, we're expecting those by the end of this week, so then we'll be able to circulate them to the council as soon as we get them.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
And sorry, what was the other item that you...
10.2.
10.2.
Sorry,
So which-
11.2. I can't even read my own
11.2.
writing.
Okay, so Gibney, yep. So what was your query on?
Thank you. So sorry if it's in the report, I just can't find it. With the current lease of that pavilion, just wondering when the current lease expires.
January 2024.
Thank you.
Okay, councillors, if there's not... Oh, so
Sorry, it just
Councillor Ball?
occurred to me, I didn't declare my impartiality interest on 11.2, sorry. I'm a member of the Bayswater Childcare Association Management Committee. Sorry about that.
Thank you, no worries. So with that, councillor, there's no more questions for items on the agenda, but we will be moving behind close. We'll be closing the meeting to the public for a confidential update from the Chief Executive Officer, after which the meeting will be closed. Could I please ask for members of the public to leave the chambers? Thank you.